Hello, everyone. We're going to talk today about dementia-friendly neighborhoods. I absolutely love the being in a neighborhood, being a neighbor, interacting with neighbors. I think neighborhoods play a really important role, and we're going to have conversation about that as we go along. Some of you may have the experiences I have in growing up in small towns where people really help one another, where people anticipate needs. The expectation isn't about asking, the expectation is about sharing. And those are important concepts as we think through our informal support systems. So why should we be interested? Why in the world are we having a conversation about neighborhoods as it relates to your experience of having mild cognitive impairment or some other early dementia? Well, neighborhoods actually impact quality of life. When we are connected to our neighbors, it improves how we feel and think. When we have neighbors that are negative or problematic, it can diminish quality of life. So there's a direct impact to some level of quality of life and actually tenure in neighborhoods. They are our most accessible support systems. If we need the cup of sugar, we don't drive across town. We don't call somebody an hour away. We go next door to our neighbors. So they are our most accessible support system as we are for them, and we need to think about those things. Assistance can be impactful with the most limited amount of time. So, again, going next door for sugar takes 5 minutes as opposed to an hour. And there's other kind of larger or wider implications of being interested and involved in the neighborhood, that crime is reduced through stronger neighborhood connections. And I know oftentimes people feel unsafe or more vulnerable, and the more connected we are with our neighbors, the safer not only do we feel, but we actually are. And then supports, as I said, longer tenure in the neighborhood. How long someone stays in the neighborhood is impacted by our connections. People, including your neighbors, are exactly like you and me. And that is, we all want to be helpful. I mean, that is a central part of life. It's a central part of life, part of feeling okay about ourselves, is that our relationships are reciprocal, that we are not only can accept help, and there's grace and power in doing that, but we can also give help. So there's some of you who may dismiss the role of the neighborhood a bit too quickly, and I want to challenge that just a little bit. Sometimes people will say they don't know the people in the neighborhood, that maybe they're younger, maybe they're working. There's a lot of reasons why people don't get connected to their neighbors, but the primary one is that we don't reach out. It doesn't mean that we're going to see them every day. It doesn't mean that they're going to spend 4 hours a day with us. It doesn't mean that they're even going to come over for coffee on a regular basis, but those connections can be meaningful, even if it's a limited time frame, but we play a responsibility in reaching out. Sometimes people will tell me, oh, they only say hi, they really don't have time for it. Again, is that them? Is that us? It's my perception that people, grow up all kinds of ways, and maybe they didn't grow up in a neighborhood that really reaches out. Maybe we need to teach that. I think often the case, we see generational differences in neighborhood connections. And so, is it someone, again, that we can expose them to, the power and meaning of being good neighbors? The diversity of age, as we talked about, I don't feel that I can relate in some way. We can relate to anybody, regardless of age. on some level. We might not relate to everything. They may not understand everything. We may not understand as much about their lives. They may see things differently, but we can connect with people. And age should not be a barrier to that. Sometimes people identify concerns about safety or privacy. I really don't know them. Maybe they're not safe. And certainly we want you to be in a safe situation, and we don't want you to be exposing yourself to risks. But most of the time, you are able to discern, what is safe to share. If it's about, I don't want them to know I live alone or whatever, they're gonna know that. If they're in your neighborhood and they pay any attention at all, they're gonna know that you live alone, or that maybe you have a partner that's in more frail health. They're gonna know some of that, and we can mitigate that by having conversations about, our kids, our grandkids, and making sure people know that we're connected not only in the neighborhood, but also to families, and that there's a support team behind us that pays attention. Sometimes people say, I just simply don't have energy. And largely that's about depression. And again, you guys are moving to the position of being warriors in this fight against decline. And to do that, we need to be connected with other people. We can support brain health by our social interaction. And that can take place in all different kinds of ways. And it can absolutely take place as we reach out to our neighbors. And then some people will say, I really just don't see the value. I'm not going to establish deep relationships with them. Well, there's a lot of people in my life that I never thought I would establish a deep relationship with that I have. Sometimes we don't know that. Sometimes we don't know what's ahead. What we do know is that connecting with others is important. So for our neighbors that we know, maybe it's important to share your diagnosis. And again, I'm not saying that on a general basis. If you don't know the individuals and feel unsafe in some way, that may not be something safe to do. By and large, if you know your neighbors, even if you're not close to them, might be important to do. And it's not necessary to say, gosh, I have Alzheimer's disease or I have Lewy body dementia, but it might be important to say, gosh, I've been diagnosed with a cognitive impairment, and here's how it affects me. And we talked in prior mindful minutes about sharing your story, and that kind of guidance applies in the neighborhood. And then consider what you might do for them. You know how many conversations I've had with individuals who have been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment or early dementias who will say to me, gosh, not going to work anymore, or, I'm not driving and my spouse is working, or I'm not driving, but, I'm watching too much TV. I really don't have enough to do. I've had thousands of conversations like that it takes a shift and it takes an openness to begin to figure out how you comport your schedule and your life to continue to have meaning and to find those structured things that you can do and participate in. And one of those things is reaching out in the neighborhood. So what can you do for them? You have a neighbor that maybe is a single person, maybe is working all the time. Maybe you can volunteer to weed their yard. Just say, I like to keep busy. I like to keep active. I know you work a lot. Would it be okay with you, if I tend to your weeds once in a while, if I have time? I can't imagine anybody saying no. Help with a project. You see somebody, working outside, or know that they're working on inside, maybe you can be their assistant. Maybe you can help in some way. Maybe you can be their mentor. Maybe you're real skilled at whatever they're working on. Share a trash bin. I've certainly known of neighbors that did this. Perhaps they're single people and perhaps there's only two of you. Neither of you have much trash and you share the cost of a trash bin. That connects you. Keep an eye on their house if traveling. Let them know when you're traveling. You introduce yourself to others. If you have new people in the neighborhood, make a point of going and introducing yourself. If you know they generally are walkers, ask to join them in their walk. If there are kids in the neighborhood, give them jobs, have them mow your lawn, have them carry heavy stuff, whatever it is. If that's something possible for you, that given those little jobs, connect you with the kids and the parents. Sometimes it's giving them a job. Maybe you have somebody in your neighborhood that's a painter or landscaper or whatever. And maybe you're emptying out your garage and you need somebody to haul stuff to the dumpster or to haul stuff to the giveaway place or whatever. Sometimes people in the neighborhood need a job. And then share your stories about the neighborhood or events that have taken place. Maybe you've lived there longer than others have, or maybe you've had connections with others and have heard amazing stories. All of those things are ways we serve the neighborhood. Now, what can they do for you? Maybe you are uncertain, or maybe your family is worried about you taking walks by yourself. Maybe they're concerned you're going to get lost. Maybe you're concerned about that. Ask somebody to join you in a walk. Ask one of the neighbors or several of the neighbors, and do that on a regular basis. And even if you have confidence in walking alone, even if your family has confidence in you walking alone, that shared conversation is important. And guess what? When you're walking, there's no pressure to have these extended conversations like there would be if we were sitting in a living room together looking at one another. There's more pressure in that way. But being outside and walking, no pressure. Have them help shovel your snow. That's a job you can give other people, and perhaps that's something reciprocal you could do, or perhaps you could invite them to help you from time to time. Take turns going to the store. I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? I go to the store on Fridays. Let me know if you ever need me to pick up anything, or to ask them, if you're going to the store, I need, if you're going to the store, if you don't mind, I have trouble because I'm not driving, and once in a while I need something. If you would holler at me, I would so appreciate it. Maybe helping walk the dog. Maybe physically you're not able, maybe the dog needs walked often. And if not, the dog's getting you up at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever, ask that kid across the street if they could walk your dog for you. Maybe you need someone to help with your yard work. Maybe the mulch has gotten too heavy for you and you pay that kid across the street to help carry it for you. Maybe it's just talking with a neighbor to say, hey, have you met the new neighbor and what do you think? So they can serve to connect you with others. If you live alone, designate someone you feel safe with in the neighborhood to have your family's phone number. It is important that, neighbors will see things, notice things that others, because they live away, will not notice. I think it's important to have an emergency contact within the neighborhood. I myself have a mother-in-law who lives by herself, has some subtle memory changes, has some physical challenges. She does great 99% of the time, but once in a while, there can be a blip, and she has a neighbor that has all of our contact information. So a couple of months ago, all of us get a call from the neighbor saying, I can't reach, your mother-in-law, and I'm worried about her. And it ends up, it was, just her phone was not working, that there was a phone malfunction. So she was fine. But I thought it was wonderful that the system worked, that she notified us that she couldn't get a hold of her, that she hadn't seen her. That, that's a wonderful safety net and something to consider. And they can help with transportation. It's back to that idea about they are our most accessible support network. So, if you, need to go to lunch with a set of friends and spouse isn't available, or you live alone, to say, could I pay you $5 to drive me over to, the IHOP and back, or, I'd buy you breakfast if you drive me over there so I can visit with friends a bit and bring me home. So whatever that is, but think about that. And again, it's on the premise of reciprocity. It isn't that you should feel bad about asking for help. It's about you're partnering with them and they're partnering with you. So most importantly, it's social supports and staying connected. Not only does it help us with our brain health, but it also reduces the chance of depression that is so prevalent as we deal with cognitive impairment. So some things to think about, just some thoughts for you. So consider joining nextdoor.com. So that's a social media platform. So it's a website. If you go to nextdoor.com, you can register and log in, and you would only be logged in to your specific neighborhood. And so that's a connection with neighbors. You don't have to post, but you can read, and they'll say, the car has been broken into in this area, or gosh, I lost my dog, or gosh, I do landscaping, or do you know any good housekeepers, or does anybody know what happened to the restaurant up the street? Those kind of things, but it keeps you connected to what's going on in the neighborhood. And if you did find yourself in need of some specific service, you could post and get references from people that are informal and probably cost less than hiring someone from an agency or a larger company. Attend those neighborhood events when they occur. Really work to do that. Prioritize doing that. Then you get to meet some folks and you get connected, and they get connected to you, and everything feels more natural. Set out in your front yard, your porch, your driveway. We spend too much time on our back decks, our back patios, and I get that, and it's beautiful, and we love to be out there, but really important to spend time in the front where people are walking by and we have the opportunity to say hi and how are you, that kind of thing. It's meaningful. It gives us eyes on what's going on in the neighborhood. When you walk, so you're greeting people when you're out front and having conversations as they happen. But when you take walks, make sure you're greeting people in their yard. Stop and say, hey, those are beautiful hydrangeas. Stop and say, gosh, you're working hard today. Make a point to have some exchange. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It doesn't have to feel abnormal. It doesn't, it's just those natural exchanges when you are saying to someone, I notice you and you're important enough to me to say something to. Invite people to join you in your driveway. I know one neighborhood group who in the pandemic had driveway events almost every Friday. And it should be easier now as more people have gotten vaccinated. And certainly if it's outside and, you have some space and that kind of thing, invite people to come out. You don't have to prepare a dinner. You don't have to prepare big things. Tell them to bring their chair and their drink. And, maybe you have a few snacks, maybe you don't. Maybe it's just a conversation hour from 7 to 8 on Thursday evenings, but invite people to join you in your driveway, even if it's one couple. The May Day concept. Maybe there are those of you who remember, as I do, how wonderful May Day was, where we took construction paper and made these cone, we would wind it up to make a cone and a handle, and we would put flowers from our yard in there, and then we would go to neighbor's house and hook those May Day baskets on their front door and knock. And the concept of taking things to our neighbors is important. Maybe it's just a card that says, "I'm glad you're in our neighborhood." Maybe it's a couple of tomatoes to a neighbor you don't know very well, but you've grown your tomatoes and there's too many for you to eat. Maybe you share them in that way. Whatever it is that is natural for you, that's available to you, but to exchange, to give that to unexpectedly to your neighbors. I've known of neighborhoods that had sharing my extras day. Maybe you're in a position where, you're trying to simplify. And we talked about the importance of simplifying our homes, not as a default, not about planning some, demise or leaving, but making our environments organizationally supportive for us. And so that simplification process is important. And maybe you end up with, lots of things that you don't need, that your family doesn't want, and you don't want to mess with. Maybe you have a sharing my extras day and you just put them out for other neighbors to use if they need them. And then again, notes to neighbors. If you have good neighbors, if you have kind neighbors, recognize that. And there's something wonderful about being recognized in written form. So I encourage you to think about the role of neighborhoods and how they can play in your lives and how they can perhaps add purpose for you. And with that, I sign off. As always, if you have questions or want to discuss further anything said in these mindful minutes, know we are available for conversation. You take care, stay dry out there, and we will see you again.